What is up, my friends, and welcome to another edition of the XFL Week in Review. I'm your host, Mark Perry, editor of XFL News Hub, and on this week's show, USFL potential head coaches, team locations, ownerships, and so much more. We'll get into that, plus our interview with LA Wildcat Dwayne Wallace. He talks about the XFL's experience there with Coach Moss. Some great stories there. The spring league that he played in, and of course the USFL. So we got that plus the latest XFL news. So how do you get in touch with the show? You know the deal. You email podcast at XFL News Hub with your MP3s or videos, or call 888-430-7692 extension 3 to be on the show. And we got a bunch of calls today. We'll get to those. Plus, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, so we will read it on the show. That's very important for the podcast side of things, as well as smash the subscribe button and hit that like button to spread the word out about the XFL and football and all things good with that. All right, so before we get into the show, though, we have a sponsor I want to take care of, and that is Manscaped. That's right. Manscaped is sponsoring the podcast. Now, you all know the Olympics or Euros, baseball, major championships, and concerts are all in the summer. You know what isn't a wild and hairy, you know what? Tame your junk with the help of your friends at Manscaped. You think about all these people in the Olympics, trimming things up. It's the summertime. They are the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Their fourth-generation performance package includes the brand-new Lawn Mower 4.0. If an athlete treats their body like royalty, why not treat your area like Olympic gold? Fellas, do the right thing with your you-know-what and join the 2 million men who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com with the promo code XFL News Hub. You get 20% off and free shipping. That's all you need to do. Now, the Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor with a new multifunction on-off switch, can engage a travel lock and gives you the ability to turn a 4000K LED spotlight on and off when you need a more precise shave. Did I mention this trimmer is waterproof too? Michael Phelps is drooling just thinking about the possibilities. So get 20% off, free shipping in the promo code XFL News Hub at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping. Plus they give you a bunch of other stuff at manscaped.com. Just use the promo code XFL News Hub there. So we appreciate Manscaped for being a sponsor of this podcast. And also, awesome, we had a great time on Wednesdays. Remember, Wednesday nights is the CFL News Hub show on CFL News Hub. You get the drift. Dogecoin News Hub, CFL News Hub, XFL News Hub. There's Destiny News Hub, and there's others too out there. You get how we do things. There is also a USFL News Hub purchased, so nice trying to do that one. But so that was a fun show. We were working on a bunch of guests to be on the CFL show as well. That's Wednesdays. You have to do CFL News Hub. Just type it in your little browser right there on YouTube, CFL News Hub, and subscribe to that channel. Put those notifications on as well. This week's question of the week we have is, what do you think of the XFL? Do you think they will kick off in 2023? We got your responses to that. And next week's question of the week, because we're really starting to get into some USFL stuff. Are you all in for the USFL, or are you kind of on the wait and see? I mean, I was thinking about this, that us spring league football fans, non-NFL fans, have really kind of gotten burned over the last couple of years. And we talked with Dwayne Wallace, too, about, the reaction for the players that having to deal with this, and he talks about players that played in the AAF and then hear about the XFL closing shop and having to deal with that also. So I was thinking about that, and including us fans too. We've kind of getting a little burnt out too. And then there was this hope of excitement about the CFL XFL thing going on. Then that kind of falls through. So, but there's things on the horizon. We have the USFL, we have the XFL, and I'll tell you what I what I know right now so far is that we are hearing things about the USFL and the rumblings of coaching names and time dates, and we're starting to hear which is good. Potential ownerships. We'll get into Mike Mitchell's big article here in a second. Not really hearing anything about the XFL, and so that's kind of disappointing, and we'll get into your reaction to that. And plus, we also have the chat room open on Richard's in there. Checking in on the chat room, so appreciate everybody just leaving their thoughts and comments on there. And of course, leave a comment about our question of the week, which is, do you think the XFL will kick off in 2023? We'll find out. So we'll hit the news. We'll get into our interview with Dwayne Wallace, former LA Wildcat and TSL player. Got some good insight there. And then we'll get to your social media stuff. All right, does that sound good? So without further ado, let's just get into the week that was the XFL, shall we? All right, first up, our own Mike Mitchell had a big article about USFL and some interesting things going on there. A lot of fans are interested in what's going on in the USFL. If you didn't hear and you were living under a rock, the USFL is returning in the spring of 2022. That's a year before the XFL. They made this announcement with Fox Sports so they're going to have the USFL, the United States Football League, will return after 4 decades. They were kind of an infamous thing, but they're going to relaunch. But the question is, like, who, what, when, where, how is this going to work? Mike Mitchell goes down the kind of what things that he's hearing. The truth is that the plan by Brian Woods and Fox to bring back the USFL has been in the works for quite some time. The seeds were planted in 2020 when the Spring League and Fox decided to partner up and air TSL games in the fall, and then following spring. The goal from Jump Street was to lead up to a USFL launch with teams from the league's past returning to represent their cities. That's interesting to note. So back in April on XFL News Hub, an article raised the possibility of returning the USFL, along with Brian Woods and Fox positioning their football partnership to capitalize on an opening created by the absence of the XFL. And this is the other part to think about when it comes to the USFL talks. I mean, this basically seems like this is taking the XFL wants to have content partners. A big, huge partner and a big fan of the XFL, Fox Sports, seems, to me anyways, to be out because of clearly they've been planning this for a while with the USFL. So let's see, he goes on to talk about the ownership structure. Now this is kind of interesting. Now Mike Mitchell says many questions have emerged about the USFL's planning and to announce in the coming weeks and months. Hints and rumors are circulating about the league's plans, potential teams and coaches involved, and how the USFL's ownership will be structured. Let's look to answer those questions that he's got. So about the ownership structure, Brian Woods, of course, is the founder. There is believed to be 11 members of part of investors total. Chief Strategy Officers Ezra Levine, who is one of the league's minority investors. The main list of investors is not something the league's disclosed at this time. Now, Brian Woods has had issues in the past. He's a former sports lawyer. He started a league called the Fall Experimental League. He's tried some things. I mean, yeah, he's just starting out. Like, I get that. But now he's been moving forward. He's the only one that that's been doing something consistently football spring wise over the last couple years. So he has some clout in the football world. Now, Fox Sports has a minority equity stake in the company, TSL, that owns the USFL. They will continue to serve as a broadcast partner. Despite very little promotion and fanfare, TSL broadcast averages 400,000 viewers per telecast on Saturday afternoons on Fox Cable. Spring League did about 80,000. To this point, Fox has seen their involvement with Woods and his league as a low-risk, low-cost proposition. The shift to the USFL may bring things moving forward from a promotional standpoint, but how deep into their pockets is Fox willing to go? Fox Sports CEO and executive producer Eric Shanks called the USFL relaunch a landmark day for football fans and Fox Sports. Many wishfully believe that Fox will take a large stake in the league and covering half the costs moving forward. Still, unless things have changed in their strategy, there's been no indication suggesting that Fox is willing to spend tens of millions of dollars on the USFL property and significantly funding all of the league's teams and operation, and tens of millions of dollars is what it's going to take, even if it tries to operate on a shoestring budget the same way the Spring League did in 2021. So, Enter the genuine possibility of individual team owners stepping up to help pay the bills and cover the cost of the USFL's individual teams. For several weeks now, sources have indicated that the USFL is looking to secure owners for each of their teams in 2022. Y'all need to get on the ball of that. I mean, it's, time's a ticking there. The FXFL had a franchise fee set of $500,000. The league struggled to find suitors and maintain that goal in its brief run. The USFL may be looking to follow the same model Woods had with the FXFL. Finding reliable owners willing to invest big money in sports franchises is easier said than done. Still, in recent days, writer Greg Luca's report out of the San Antonio Express supports the recent scuttlebutt. Former gunslinger safety Jim Bob Morris told the Express that he's been in talks with an executive from the USFL regarding the potential to bring a franchise in San Antonio, which was a market that the XFL was looking at prior to when things shut down. They were trying to figure out new things, and San Antonio was a name that had come up. It's worth noting that they went on record, City of San Antonio went on record in the story. They haven't been in touch with anyone from the USFL. Of course, the trademarks has the San Antonio Gunslingers. They have a bunch of trademarks and locations, potential LA, Denver, New York Generals, et cetera, et cetera. So it looks like the Spring League is looking for owners. And where they would set up teams, it looks like they have plenty of names. But in June, in the USFL's press statement, stated it would play next spring with a minimum of 8 teams. So they're looking for some ownership there. Now, Mike Mitchell goes on to say he's been told that the goal is to try and play with 9 or 10 teams or more if possible. Of the nearly 24 different team names that the USFL has retained the rights for, most of them will be put on the back burner for the future and not used in 2022. The question is twofold: which teams will launch in season 1 of the new USFL and where will they play? And that's where the rub. Several sources have indicated to him the genuine possibility that because of the short amount of time remaining for the USFL to set up shop in markets before their 2022 season, and for financial reasons that the league could decide to play an expanded hub city model next spring, which is something that I absolutely had said that if they were going to do it and they were going to come back, I did not think that they were going to be playing in cities with team presidents and season ticket packages and that kind of thing. So that, in some respects, helps the XFL because they're just, I assume that will be the TSL again with the skin of the USFL and maybe a little bit more fanfare. I mean, you can't even buy TSL merch. I would assume you would buy USFL merch. So potentially using the hub city model in 2022 would save, of course, a bunch of money for the team. So we'll see with that. Now, as far as head coaches go, that's been interesting too. So on the day of the USFL announcement in June, Doug Flutie was front and center in the promotion, selling the return of the league with a New Jersey Generals hat on. The USFL's official website has also gone the nostalgic route, showcasing the old league's trademark logos, colors, and photos from the league's past. So it makes sense to try to bring some nostalgia playbook and look to bring some familiar faces with ties to the league. Enter Tampa Bay Bandits head coach Steve Spurrier. Sources have informed me that the USFL has already sent feelers out to Spurrier about getting him to come on board with the USFL. From a storyline and marketing standpoint, it makes perfect sense for the former Gators coach to be on sidelines. So for Spurrier, return to the USFL will be like his coaching career coming full circle, which would be kind of cool too as well. So he would be a big name, a guy out there that the XFL would absolutely love to get and put in Tampa for the Vipers or Orlando. Of course, Spurrier did a good job in the AAF. So that's a name out there. Wade Phillips is a name out there. His family has ties to the USFL and Texas. Hal Mummy, Jerry Glanville have publicly expressed their desire to be part of the USFL. And, of course, Mummy winning his championship. You could check out his interview on XFL Markcast. Check out his interview on there as well. So that's kind of where things stand. So coaches' names are being played out there. Player names, we keep hearing all sorts of kind of rumors out there. It's the question is, what are they going to be able to put together with this new USFL? But it's something that us fans are absolutely spring football fans, whether it's the CFL, the XFL, USFL. We have options. And you'll hear Dwayne Wallace talking about how excited the players are about having options as well. But we don't know how these guys are going to get paid. Is there a salary cap? Who's going to be owners? Is it going to be an ownership thing? I still think, based on the timeline, I mean, even if they were to, we got to remember, let's put it this way. If they were going to play in April or March, I mean, that means, and then they want to cash in, it goes back to what I was saying about the XFL's timeline. You need to have some kind of announcement, something big in October. You want to have merch to sell, at least to help fund your league during the holiday buying season, if you're going to set something up. I mean, it was before with the USFL or the TSL, it was kind of like, the league is starting up, and here are the players on the teams, and then they're going to play. So I would assume we might get a little bit more build-up this time, but we're hearing all sorts of things going on the USFL side of things, and we're going to cover it 100%, as we will with all of the American football leagues here. CFL, we cover the European, the ELF. We cover the European League of Football on CFL News Hub, but we're covering the USFL here. So it'll be interesting to see what you guys think, and that's what's part of our question of the week for next week is, are you all in for the USFL, or are you wait and see? Leave us a comment on that news there. And other news, this kind of pissed some people off. And this was my idea, and I gave it to Josh because some fan wrote in one of the comments talking about this kind of thing. So could Canada dust off the Canadian Football Act to stop an XFL invasion? Oh boy. Did that piss people off? And honestly, the people that, and I was, I find the headline to stop an XFL invasion. We know how protective CFL fan is of the CFL. But I think, honestly, they just read the headline. Some of the people that got tweaked about it, because it's not saying anything, really. It's not like they didn't even read the article. So they got pissed off for no reason. So there. So basically, in 1974, we'll take a little walk back in time. In 1974, the year I was born, under the threat of the World Football League, WFL, expanding to Toronto, the Canadian Minister of Health, Mark Lalonde, introduced a bill, C-22, to protect the Canadian Football League from direct competition. It was again brought up in 1983 when the USFL wanted to play in Canada, and yet again in 2007 when the NFL was thought to want a franchise north of the border. Never actually signed into law. Says it right in the beginning. The original bill was designed to ban foreign football leagues from playing on Canadian soil, almost explicitly during the CFL season, to keep direct competition from another league from having a detrimental effect on the CFL. So this goes back even further than the 1970s. In the 50s, the NFL almost had a franchise in Toronto. The Dallas Texans were thinking of moving there. Eric Craddock almost bought a franchise up there, getting into the Argos ownership group. The Bassett family, John and John F., tried at some point to get another franchise to Canada, including in 1974, Toronto Northmen of the WLF. This particular act stated no person that owns, operates, or manages a team in a league foreign from the CFL shall play in Canada. Ironically, Toronto is one of the three cities that opposed the bill, along with Vancouver and Montreal. Interesting there. Once again, this was seriously brought up when it was announced in 2007 that the owners of the Argonauts wanted to own an NFL team. The Sun article from back then stated, quote, if Toronto landed an NFL team, the Argonauts, a team that is founded 130 years ago, would more likely fold. The Hamilton Tiger Cats, a team that plays about 40 miles west of Toronto, may also face extinction, and that could kill the CFL. Now, what's interesting here is the chatter about the Toronto Argonauts potentially jumping ship to to the XFL, which is not a complete out of the question possibility. And this is from multiple sources inside in Canada saying that this is not something that not happen, but I agree with kind of the consensus that this is probably more of leverage than action. I just can't see them doing it. Would be a huge get for the XFL. I just don't see it. So for sure, that was 14 years ago. So Cam Loops this week, Christopher Folds recently stated that there needed to be another bill to protect the 3-down version of football from the XFL. He said, we need a similar bill today, one with a focus on preserving Canadian rules football from coast to coast now that the CFL and the twice bankrupt XFL are talking. So there you go. Now, recent talks between the XFL and CFL didn't produce anything, and the MLSE was instrumental. They're interesting in we're interested in working with the XFL. And then you had, would the government try to step in? I don't think they care. And I think this is long gone. It's not going to happen. But it was something that was interesting that was put out there. Could this happen again? I don't think so. I think the politicians got too much on their plate. But relax. Hey, this is something in the history books that had happened. Would this be brought again? So we're putting out there. It's not clickbait or any other stupid thing people try to make up. And I swear, I think people just read headlines and don't read the article. So it didn't say it exists. It said it right in the beginning. So anyway, I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Do I think it's going to happen? No, no one thinks it's going to happen. It might be talked about, and that's what I thought was important about reporting it, because I think it's just important to just kind of cover our bases here. And this is something that was out there, and we reported it. All right, so that's the news, the XFL, USFL news for this week. Very quiet week. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to check in with Dwayne Wallace, and then we'll get into your social media stuff and my blabbing on right after this. Stay tuned, my friends, after this commercial break.
This week on the Markcast, are we invading Canada regardless? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe we should go F ourselves. I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
I'll tell you, when it's out there, we're gonna cover it. We're gonna talk about it. Mr. Dan Ralph, Canadian Press, talking about the Argos potentially still wanting to work with the XFL. We're having Dan on the show. We're gonna figure out what's going on with all this stuff.
December 13th, the day after Grey Cup. Guess what? We're gonna be talking about this. I'm convinced that it's not going away, and it may be on the back burner, but the stove's not off. It's just simmering right now. And
I mean, we're saying the Argos, but we mean MLSE, the group that owns the Argos, wanted to come over. And, there's a lot of concerns about this single game betting. We bring some viewer comments into the fold, and some very nuanced thoughts this week. And we're trying to detach our emotions from this entire merger. We just want peace. We just want to enjoy football.
Yeah, and we're also bringing on Murray McCormick. He's covering the Rough Riders. We're going to talk about everything going on with Riders camp and all the injuries and the COVID protocols, all that stuff.
I thought it was funny that he didn't know there were 12 guys on the field. And as one guy mentioned, I said, wait till he finds out there's a C in defense, as we spell our word.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty good one. It's an adjustment for guys.
And then Coach Hal Mummy of the linemen, formerly of the Renegades, Air Raid, the Godfather, right? They call him the Air Raid offense. He is going to be on the show. It's a tremendous interview. Does that seem more intriguing of a place to wind up as a player or as a coach than to wait around for whatever Danny and company is going to do with XFL?
Oh yeah, I want to do the USFL.
And for those who gatekeep about us being CFL members,
you're mad.
We got our names on the fan base at the Grey Cup. Reed hooked that up. Look at that.
Official Grey Cup fan base members here, the Markcast podcast for all time.
It's all happening this week on the Markcast.
All right, we're here with Dwayne Wallace, former LA Wildcat offensive tackle. Welcome to the XFL Week in Review show. Appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, man. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So I always like to start off all my interviews asking people, like, especially athletes, like, how did you get from kid in high school all the way to playing in the XFL and TSL and college experience?
Yeah, well, when I was in high school, I started my freshman year. And I didn't started playing back until my like junior, senior year. And so I was kind of late to football. And so I had to go to a junior college because I didn't have grades to go to a 4 year. So I went to Riverside City College. And from there, my first year, I was a freshman All-American. My first year in junior college. And then my second year, I was All-American. And I had Arkansas, Louisville. Louisville was my first offer. Chuck Petrino, he offered me first. And then after that, I got San Diego State and Arkansas. And I wanted to go to Arkansas, but Cal Berkeley also offered me. And I wanted to just be here in California. So I went up there to Berkeley and went there, started at Berkeley. We had we was top 3 in offenses in the Pac-12. And that was pretty good. And then after that, my coaching staff left. And then I went to the University of Kansas, played there for a year, had a pretty good offense. And I came out, I went to the Tropical Bowl, that place down there in Florida. I won MVP for that. I won MVP at the Tropical Bowl. And after that, I got invited to the NFLPA. And my coach was Jackie Slater, and he named me best overall lineman at the NFLPA. And then went to a couple camps in the NFL, the Bears, Pittsburgh, and played in the XFL. Got picked up in the supplemental draft from Coach Moss. And a funny story about that is I didn't get drafted. And I went to a meet and greet, and I saw, and I went up to the Coach Moss, and I was like, man, I'm in the draft, but somehow y'all missed on me. You got to watch me film, man. And from there, we just had a relationship. He was like, yeah, I'm pick you up in the supplemental, man. That's what happened. And I had an opportunity to start the last game in LA versus Tampa, and he gave me that opportunity, and it worked out. We had a great game. You know, we had something to build on prior to the pandemic. So I had a great experience in the XFL, forever relationships with coaches and players. And I really feel like it was good for a lot of people. And it was some real strong relationships was built there. And then transferring back over to the spring league, we kind of got to like rejuvenate those relationships, right? Because there was a lot of XFL coaches and a lot of players. So it was just nice to see everybody back playing football, because, you know, most people were sitting at home, and it was like, you know, kind of depressing. No football, you know, going from spring football and having no spring football and relying on the league, and the league cutting down their rosters. So, you know, it left a lot of people at home. So I feel like the spring league gave people the opportunity to get film, just to get back into football, man. Because, you know, a lot of people ask, you know, why do you do it for free? It's just for the love of the game, and just, you know, to just get back out there, and mostly relationship with the coaches and the players, because that's very important, and that's really underlooked. You know, you have to have a certain level of respect for your coach for him to call you on your phone and go out there and give it your all for him. You know, so
what was it like playing with Coach Moss? I mean, you said you just showed up to a meet and greet and was like, "Hey, give me a shot." What was it like playing underneath him?
Yeah.
He's kind of a character.
Man, Coach Moss is funny, man. Serious guy. He joke around, but serious guy when it comes down to work. Never see him really like kind of fold in any situation. He just expects us to just, you know, finish and do what we were supposed to do. Everybody doing their job. We're a firm believer in that. And so, you know, a lot of times we had just have to run for like disciplinary reasons. And very, very high energetic, energetic guy. Real good guy to be around. Real disciplinary oriented guy. And it was fun playing for him, man. Definitely was a fun environment.
So what about playing under? I mean, Norm Chow is no slouch either, and as far as pro things go. So as
Yeah,
playing on offense with him, and even Josh Johnson too. What was it like playing with
yeah.
those
I mean,
guys?
man, we had a great staff, man. We had Jared Fontenot, offensive line coach, coached at Green Bay Packers 15 years. Learned a lot from that guy, a lot of knowledge, and he was linked up with the great mind of Wong Chow, and them two together was just like wow, like y'all just know so much football. And then I was just talking about Josh earlier. Josh, he just so experienced. He got so much experience in the league. It's just like, he controls the offense. Like he knows everything. He was kind of like the Brady of the XFL. Like people always ask, what was the difference between Josh and PJ? Like Josh, I'll take over PJ just off of he gonna come in there and do the right thing. He know what he's doing. He know where the situations. Like he's just a real put together quarterback. And we started to see it, and
Yeah.
he never panics in situations, and he has that control over the offense and confidence in what he's doing. Always making checks on the line, always making checks, even when he gets some calls in and we get a look. Because the last game we played, which was Tampa, they had the number one defense, and all they did was blitz. So it was a real confusing defense. So we had to have a lot of checks going into that game that saved us and made that comeback and made the offense roll.
Yeah.
And Norm Chow always gave us a great game plan for the week, and we was prepared. And, it was really nice to see everything coming together.
Yeah, I was in the camp of really felt like Josh Johnson, give him 2 more games, he would have really been in the talk of MVP of the XFL because he was just starting to come on playing games. But so then we had the whole thing with the XFL going down. What was that experience like? Were you thinking that, it might come back in a couple of months, or, I mean, what was kind of the chatter for us at XFL News Hub? We were like, we were following the, what, we won't say it by name because YouTube doesn't like that, but we know it was something was coming. And then all of a sudden, a week later, everything was shut down and that was it. So what was kind of the players' reaction to all that?
Oh man, it was just like, first of all, then nobody knew what it was. And then it was like, whoa, what is going on? It was kind of like crazy. And then after that, everything just happened so fast. It went from not playing to, okay, we're gonna shut down the whole season. Everybody got to get gone and go home. It was a lot of people that played in the AAF, the other league down there, and they was like, "Oh my God, we having flashbacks. It's like the same thing." And I'm like, "Well, what you mean? This is my first time going through something like this." And it was just, man, it was a real crazy time, man, because you got to think about it. At least over 50% of the players played in the other league.
It's true.
So like they went through 2 lockouts. So this was it was more dramatic for them than even me. And I'm just like, wow, I don't know what's gonna happen. And they're like, yeah, they're gonna shut down. And that ended up happening. And, man, it was just bad time for people, man.
Yeah.
There was no certainty.
Yeah. And then so all this stuff goes down and the XFL is kind of done. And then now a lot of players now transition to the spring league. So what was the experience like playing in the TSL?
Spring league, man, it was a fun experience. I had a lot of fun. Mostly with like my players and with the players and the coaches, had opportunity to play against some guys I played in the XFL and played against in the XFL. Had the opportunity to, build C-back coaches that coached in the XFL, and I played both seasons of the spring league, and the first one, played for Coach Ted, and it went good, and I got an opportunity to play again, and I was thinking about it, and I was just like, man, just off of the relationship that I built with the coaches and some of the players, that brought me back. And when I came back the second time, it was better than the first time. And you know, it was kind of sad when we had to leave because, you know, it's just like, yeah, we played 6 games. It came and went fast. And the sadness was the feeling of, man, what's next?
Mm.
You know, what's next? It's that what next. It's always that what's next feeling when you leave an uncertainty situation like the spring league.
Yeah.
You know? And so with with that being said, had a great time, man. Had a great time. Got an opportunity to put up great film. So you always thankful for that. And then we heard that the USFL's coming out. You know, well, we don't know for certain who's going to be hired, but it's just another opportunity to give, you know, guys like myself, guys around the league, hope, something to grind for. Not to say that you wasn't working out and grinding, but it just gives you that extra like security blanket. Like, hey, I have an upcoming date, and you know, it turns things up a notch.
Yeah.
Then just working out every day.
So what was the reaction to the players when the news came out about the USFL?
Oh, we was happy, man. We was happy, you know. Everybody was uncertainty about, you know, whether the XFL or Canada was even going to play, and then just to hear this was coming out, it was like, man, what? It's another opportunity for everybody to get jobs. Like everybody was happy, you know. You know, you got to think about it. We played in the spring league for 2 years, 2 seasons of spring football, and it's just like, you know, after the second time, it was just like, man, you know, it was kind of like the breaking point for guys. Like, you know, hey, if I'm not gonna get called getting paid to play football, it's just like, you know, this might be the end of it for me if I don't get a call from the league. So to hear that that's coming back out in such a fast turnaround, which is next year, it's like, it's real encouraging for guys to, you know, stick with it and stick it out, and, you know, give them time for, you got to think about it. We just got done playing for our coaches. So, you know, if that'll give us time to go back home, work on what we need to work on, and get bigger, stronger, and faster, and be prepared for that opportunity for when it comes back around. So yeah, it's definitely
players were excited. Now, what were the players' reaction when all this XFL, CFL talk started going on? What was their reaction to all that?
Man, people just did. It was crazy. We were like, well, is how they going to do it as far as Canada and the rules. The most important thing was the rules, because the XFL rules was different from the NFL rules. Our kickoffs was different. Like certain things was different. So it's just like, wow, like how is that? How is they going to do that with the rules? And then, like, you know, how were they going to do it with traveling back and forth from Canada? It was just a lot of just like uncertainty questions that was just going on. And we didn't know if Canada was even going to play. It was just like, man, like people just really didn't know what was going on. So it's great to see people back out there. I got a lot of my former teammates back out there in Canada and stuff like that, playing now and stuff like that. So that's good to see.
Yeah. So kind of what's because I think a lot of people don't realize, like, there's like, you know, they see like the big Tom Brady's and, you know, Patrick Mahomes making all this money, but there is a ton of guys like yourself that kind of, you know, practice squad, these different leagues, like playing in this, you know, the TSL and the USFL. So what are you doing right now as far as, like, are you getting calls from NFL teams, or you know, are you looking at CFL? Like, what are you working on right now?
Right now, I'm just training, man. I'm just training, getting better. You know, camp starts in 2 weeks, and you know, just hearing from people here and there, nothing major. You know, like I said, most people rosters are filled for camp right now, and we're 2 weeks out. But I've definitely been working out with my former Blues teammate Shu. Shu, who we've been working out with? Who are we been working out with at the park? At the high school. The Denver quarterback. What's his name? Brett Ripken.
Okay.
And Chase Daniels. And Drew Brees' head trainer Todd Durkin.
Oh.
He's been training with those guys Tuesdays and Thursdays, and receiver. Golden Tate was out there. He runs routes. He runs routes with us every Tuesdays and Thursdays. So those guys are getting ready to leave in 2 weeks. So this week and next week is our last week going on the field with them. And what I do when I go out there with them, it's kind of like a 7-on-7. So I snap balls for them. I snap balls and then run gases to the other end. Man, we throw at least like 100 to 150 balls, just both ends of the field, going back and forth, just snapping balls to them. I don't even play center, but I just want to learn it. So I'm snapping balls, going on the center, going long, shotgun. You know what I'm saying? Working on that. Then I go do boxing. I go in the field. Just always working on my craft, getting myself prepared for camp. If my name, so happens to get called. So that's kind of what I've been doing since I've been getting back, man. I've really been working and just wait for opportunity when camp starts. Like I said, most of the rosters are filled up now, but stuff happens and situations happen. So I'm just always ready for that situation.
Oh, cool. Well, that's good to hear. I mean, hopefully we'll see you in the USFL or hopefully the NFL. If people where can people find you to follow your career on social media?
Oh, man. Yeah, follow me, man. Train Record 62 on Instagram. Big Wild _62 on Twitter, and that's all my social medias, man. I'm on there, and show me some love, and thank you for having me on the show. I do want to shout out my offensive line, man, for the spring league, man. Sure. I feel like we're one of the best. Beach, Big Keys, and also people may not know it. My man Shu, he didn't get to play receiver, but he played corner and made some big plays, big interceptions, and converted corner. He played for the Panthers, and he did a real good job coming in for not being a corner, coming in, grabbing some great interceptions and stuff. And shout out to Coach Ted, man. Ted, he's just a different guy. He just know how to put great players together. He don't get enough credit, He just don't get enough credit for what he do. But yeah, with that being said, man, I can't wait to see what the future holds with the TSL, the XFL coming around. It's a lot of excitement. I'm happy for it. A lot of good news always coming out. I'm always on the lookout for information about what's going on. So thank you for always updating us as players with all the information, and the job that you do is really important.
Oh, thank you.
I thank you for always keeping up with the news, keeping us up to date, and it's really appreciated, man.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, Dwayne. Thanks for being on the show, and we'll keep following you throughout the next year.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man.
Thanks. What's up, XFL Army? If you're a fan of the XFL News Hub and you have a telephone, which I know all of you do because you're sitting there playing on your phones all the time, then why not download the XFL News Hub app? That's right, it's on iTunes. It's on Android. We have an Android version and an iPhone version of the XFL News Hub app. So what do you get? You get the latest news from XFL News Hub, the premier source of XFL news in the universe. Plus, you get push notifications when we have breaking news. You will be the first to know. You can leave a comment on some of the news right from your phone. Plus, you get this podcast on your phone as well. Remember, you can leave us reviews on the Google Play Store or iTunes. It links to other social media, our other social media accounts, and so much more. Be in the know. I know you're on your phones. People are on their phones all the time. They never get off their phones. So why not just download the XFL News Hub app on your Android or iPhone today? All you need to do is go to the Google Play Store or iTunes and just type in XFL News Hub. That's XFL News Hub. Download our app on your phone today. All right, we are back. We want to thank Dwayne Wallace for coming on the show. And you could see like how important these leagues are for guys that are chasing the dream. I mean, it shouldn't be just the NFL. I mean, we need to have a strong CFL, we need to have a strong USFL, and a strong XFL. And I think the market is there. I mean, you talk about NFL, you talk about college football is huge, and, you know, spring football will work. Clearly, it works in Canada, right? 100-year brand. So why not it work in the United States? They play baseball. We play baseball. You got basketball. I mean, hockey. We all do the same thing. So I think this iteration in this modern era, we will get a successful spring football league that will at least last, hopefully, for ages to come. I know that when I talked to people within the XFL, they were talking about building a 100-year brand with the XFL. This is what they told me before talks with the CFL even occurred. Going on actually when the league was still going, that's what they were kind of shooting for and they were building towards. So that's potentially why you get this kind of very patient, you know, sometimes frustrating because we want to hear stuff all the time with the XFL, and I think that's kind of their philosophy. All right, so let's get into some of that social media stuff. We love talking with our pals out there. Plus, what's up to everybody on the chat? Well, let's take a look at their comments actually first. Let's see, going on in the chat room real quick. We got Richard in there. Javier is in there. Mark is in there. Oh, the XFL shop is open now, and some of the matches low percent right now. Javier, yes, buy that merch. It is definitely low right now. Richard says USFL is going to be in San Antonio, maybe Birmingham. Yeah, we'll see. All these different locations. Let's see what else we got here. Paladin Demos in there. H. Charlie Miller. I would like to see Ted Lewis. I believe that his name, former coach of the Birmingham Steel of the AAF, coached the Birmingham Stallions of the USFL. That'd be kind of cool. That would be cool there. Zach says, hey, what's up? All eyes on USFL. Yeah, I mean, that's the gig right now. I mean, that's the one, at least that we're hearing, is a lot of talk about what's going on with the USFL. I think the XFL is really right now locking in that partnership, that content partnership. I would assume it's with Peacock and NBC. Fox Sports is clearly out, unless they decide to play at different times. I think that's what's happening, and hopefully it's a formality, and hopefully they basically had people interested regardless of the XFL or CFL talks. And, you know, the idea of bringing in two franchises. It's really going to be interesting with the USFL model and the XFL model, which business model is going to work. And even with the CFL model. I mean, you're talking, these are basically three different business philosophies. I have a feeling Redbird's going to hold on. They're going to, I mean, unless the Argos sell to the XFL. I mean, we know that the Argos lose $2 million a year, even on a good year, supposedly. If they sell the franchise, I mean, they're not going to get much for it. You heard Dan Ralph on Markcast talk about this kind of stuff. If the XFL brings a franchise to Canada, puts a franchise in Mexico, I assume if I were the XFL, I would hold on to the franchises and run the league for 5 years with the goal of selling them to a potential owner. But it'd be interesting to see that business model with the USFL's business model, which is looking for owners right now. And the USFL did that in the past, and that didn't work out. But I think we're in a different time and a different era when it comes to this stuff. So I'm not sure there. Greg checking in. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in any development league. We deserve a league to grow with. That's true, too. I mean, you got to think about the NCAA is basically a developmental league, really. And this is a chance. You hear guys like Dwayne Wallace, who started playing later on in life, but like give him an opportunity to play consistently through a full season, and a year or two later, who knows what some of these guys are going to be. So that's why a spring league in the United States is important. And, you know, giving these guys an opportunity. And we'll watch. We will definitely watch. All right, let's get to our social media stuff. We know you guys love that stuff. First up, about do you think the XFL will kick off in 2023? Because some people are saying that that the XFL isn't going to happen at all. I don't know. I don't think so. If I was a betting man, I would still bet on The Rock and Danny Garcia and Redbird Capital. I would be stunned. The only reason why I would say that the XFL wouldn't come back is if they were like, hey, we shopped around a TV deal and no one's interested, and we're not going to put the money in without a TV deal. That's basically the only reason why I think that they wouldn't do it. And then it's the USFL all the way. Tom Rainey says, I'm afraid the XFL fans will lose patience waiting and might not come back. The XFL should never have considered a partnership with the CFL. Kenneth says, completely agree. Without having true commitment intent from them, having talks lead nowhere and only wastes valuable business development time. Josh says, I knew it wouldn't work back when the CFL tried US franchises. The only thing is, and I believe Mike Mitchell had talked about that, there might not have ever even been a plan to play in 2022. That has been floated out there as well. Something to think about. James says they'll have to hope the USFL pulls an AAF. They are doing this for content purposes and will be creating a show about bringing the league back. Then it makes sense, and that's what I think. And I think James is spot on. I think that's why you need that runway, because you need the content partner first. The content partner signs off on it, and then you can film that. And that's just I think that's a brilliant way to do it, to get this build, this energy, this interest in the XFL as it gets closer and closer. This kind of Hard Knock style content behind the scenes, watching Danny Garcia and all these other people involved. I wouldn't be surprised if they've already had film stuff already for this thing. I mean, just if you threw out a teaser of video when Danny Garcia and The Rock realized that they purchased the XFL and all that kind of stuff, and you just throw out there and then you just say that coming in 2022, that's it. People are locked in, loaded. Let's go. But fans want football. They love football. We love football. Kenneth says, highly doubt if the USL pulls off a successful season 1, the XFL will struggle severely and probably won't last in the long haul. I mean, that's a definite problem. Michael says, yeah, I do. USFL don't have Redbird Capital. XFL has been putting together an awesome front office team, locations, team names. Be back with 10 teams, Mexico and Toronto Argonauts. Hopefully they sell the teams within 2 years. Chris, no, they lost all the momentum by this stunt with the CFL losing another year. Javier said, yeah, I hope I like my Battlehawks back in the field again. And Paul says, I don't think they'll ever kick off again. That's kind of reaction to that. I mean, another thing that the XFL needs to be concerned about, and if I'm the USFL, I'm doing it. I just don't think the only way the USFL could do, if I was the USFL, and I would say we're going to have a franchise in St. Louis and our hub city will be in St. Louis. That takes it right to the XFL. That's what, if you're going to play that game, that would be how I would do it. Canada, about the Canadian Football Act that upsetted some people that didn't read the article. Tim says, personally, I think CFL should join the EXFL. Michael says, XFL gets a lot of coverage for a league that has no record of success and may go 2 years without playing a single down of football. Yeah, we do cover the XFL, Michael, because we are called XFL News Hub. And believe me, if The Rock was not, and Danny Garcia and Redbird Capital, and it was Joe Schmo owning this league, if the MLIF or whatever it is that keeps talking about it. Remember, they're supposed to be playing right now, where you can buy stock in that league. If they bought the XFL, we wouldn't be talking about the XFL. So, Dave says, LOL, the XFL is a paper league. Doesn't exist. Second failure period. End of story. Oh, very nice there. Steve, Devil's Advocate. If I played competitive soccer today, like I did when I was 12, I would have played professionally. Okay? Sports matter. They are important. It always It all always starts with a domestic league, aka USA, before and after the World Cup they hosted. The CFL needs to live. It's not a sport. It's a passion we all miss. True. Steven says, keep the twice failed XFL far away from the CFL. And says, nope, it was never signed into law. This is just clickbait. If you read the article, Anil, it says this was never signed into law. So how is that clickbait? Sandy says, wonder if Danny and The Rock feel used. That's potentially something out there. Why is the league scared of evolving? Kevin, John, pretty sure most CFL fans want absolutely nothing to do with the XFL. The X isn't going to play this year, maybe not even next year, so why bother? Penny ante league, so we don't need any legislation to stop the XFL. Let it try to survive in the U.S. Again, people not reading the article. Rick says, if the CFL needs a B to keep alive, then why didn't the government lend it money to keep it alive? That's a good point. My thoughts are, if you need a bill to protect your league, it says to me that is inferior and drive fans away even more, because we all know people love to don't be interested in forced in doing anything. Scott says, because the CFL isn't played in a foreign country, hence why Trudeau said no to them. There you have it. So some interesting takes. Good article by Josh Davis. Something that we needed to put out there, and that's why it's out there. On to the YouTube comments. We all love those. Let's see. Daniel says the XFL pretty much screwed their fans. Talking about last week's episode. That is all I understand. I mean, I gotta be. Fans are pissed. MIG 21 BIS Fishbed L. Eventually, they have to play ball. Eventually, we need a product. Better to field 8 teams now and get a season or two to produce revenue than try to pursue making anything bigger and better. I know. Like I've said, I've been saying this all along. You need to have something by October, or I'm like, nah, you know what? I might take the winter off and just cover the CFL if we're not getting any news by October, which is a shame because October is the biggest month. The biggest October, November, December, the biggest advertising month on the web. September, October, that fall time period. So not to have any news would be bad. But I think we're going to get USFL news. And that's kind of what we're hearing, that there'll be a lot of chatter about the USFL in the fall. And the XFL's got to do what they got to do. XFL team realignment, true American. He said the West San Antonio Roughnecks. Again, Houston was fine. San Diego Wildcats, Oklahoma Renegades, Seattle Dragons, Birmingham Viper, St. Louis Battlehawks, New York Guardians, DC Defenders. Yeah, better not move my DC Defenders. Greg, why can't they kick off in 2022? That's 2 years since the last kickoff. They already worked out the rules and markets 2 years ago. I know, we heard that, hey, this was the turnkey and you can turn it back on. I'm sure. I just hope that the fans deserve an explanation, and they'll stick around. You just have to be honest. And even the first iteration, remember the XFL made mistakes. They were up front. I think the fans need to be up front. But it is a little disconcerting that when this CFL announcement was made, that there wasn't any kind of official thing from the XFL. So that made me feel like they might have been a little bit caught off guard. But they threw in what they did throw out was talking about international games, so we'll see. But talk is cheap. You got to either bleep or get off the pot, as I like to tell my kids when it comes to stuff. Andy says MLSE could announce that they are putting a team in the XFL while not withdrawing from the CFL. They could just own 2 football teams. They already own 2 soccer teams, and they have the money. Interesting take there as well. Some more comments. Darren says, I think having a Toronto team in the 2023 XFL season would be awesome. I think that would be very exciting. Crimson 06 says there is a law in Canada that protects the CFL. This is where I got it from. So Cinnamonsism 06 posted this, and this is where the article comes from. So we want to thank him. Then they talk about free trade, and et cetera, et cetera. The Raging Dolphin Maniac. Hey, we were thinking about coming seeing your team. It looks like my NFL trip isn't going to work out. We were kind of plotting everything out. Oh, and did you hear today that they're opening the borders in August in Canada? So now I got to plot my entrance into Canada. I'm actually working on my passport this week. See y'all up north. If Toronto jumps leagues, I wonder if the other corporate-owned teams jump too, which would also make me wonder if Toronto would want to join the NFL. Wouldn't that be interesting? I mean, if I'm the NFL, I would love to have the Toronto Argonauts. Are you kidding me? If the Toronto Argonauts jumped ship and went to the NFL instead, but I don't think that will happen because somebody had talked about this, that NFL doesn't want corporate ownership; they want a single owner. And that's why there's single owners everywhere. There's not like a corporate entity that owns a team. Michael says, over the weekend I posted an email for the Rod Peterson show. We watch Rod all the time. Then I posted live comments and refused to address the news that the Toronto Argonauts might defect to the XFL. The attitude was, we address what we want and we have a football season coming up. I guess it doesn't mean anything that the franchise that is 148 years old might leave the CFL in 2023. I do not get why this was not addressed. It would be like the NFL defecting to the XFL, not completely. We know it wouldn't happen, but I guess they want to live in fantasy land. I know Rod Peterson, he even said it on his show, he's not a fan of Dan Ralph, and that's why it wasn't talked about. And I think it's vice versa for both of those gentlemen. I don't think either one of them like each other. Dave says Toronto wants the NFL. There's zero interest in a Southern Ontario and the XFL. The NFL games played in Toronto didn't generate interest because none of the teams were our teams. And I agree with that. Making your team go somewhere else, like the Jacksonville Jaguars playing in Europe, unless you have a team there, and I get that. So it didn't really generate the interest that it would. We as fans have our own teams already and wouldn't bend over backwards to go to a game unless they belong to Toronto. And I agree with that. I think that's a good point there. USFL brought in experts on how to save the league, and Trump convinced the other owners not to listen. Yes, we know the history between the former the WWE Hall of Famer and his brilliance when it comes to the USFL was not that good. Jack Steele, this podcast was just basically talking about how you don't hate Canada, as he's laughing. Besides that, love the XFL, CFL, TSFL, and USFL info. Always, that's the main thing, trying to bring you guys the info, but at the same time, if there's a narrative out there that I don't agree with, I'm going to address that. But that's water under the bridge. I'm done dealing with that now. And now we're talking about, on this show, we don't have to deal with it anymore. We're talking about the XFL and the USFL in the U.S. But whatever happens with Toronto, we'll keep you posted on that. Theodore says MLSE had a chance to buy the XFL at the same time that Redbird bought it. True. They didn't have the foresight at the time. In my opinion, it would be better for MLSE to convince the CFL to move their season from early April until Labor Day. Then they should own 4 CFL expansion franchise in northeast of the United States. They should choose stadiums that are 20 to 50,000 seating capacity. Most of those are soccer or university type facilities, and sell franchise to local owners if possible. Wait until all the teams then made the playoffs once and then repeat the process somewhere else. I mean, the one thing that has been talked about a lot when it comes to the XFL and CFL and talking about gambling in particular is that there's not enough teams to gamble on. And that's a problem when you're trying to generate gambling revenue, is when you only have so much to choose from and so many, and it's a problem for both leagues, is you only have so many matchups. And that's why if there was a crossover where they played each other once or twice a season and those games counted, then you can have some more interesting things. Are you telling me? All right, let's just put aside that if the CFL and XFL played in parallel, you're telling, and forget about the rules and stadium, all that stuff, but just in general, the interest of the Argonauts taking on the Houston Roughnecks in a game that counts in the standings for both leagues. Forget about whether or not they play each other in a championship game, but just those games would be totally of interest and would totally bring in the American audience interested in the CFL and vice versa, because these games matter. You can't do an exhibition game when it comes to pro football. That just doesn't work. Just see the Pro Bowl. That doesn't work. And then if you played the two best teams in the league at the end to play for some whatever you call it, the XFL News Hub Cup, or apparently the Markcast Cup, because they already own piece of the the Grey Cup. They could start their own, and then we do that. That would have been cool, but nothing's going to happen, at least for now. John Smith, quote, I'm Mark Perry, and I do what I want, close quote. I heard that in Eric Cartman's voice. You go, Mark. Well, thank you, Eric Cartman. I've been watching The Simpsons. So I like to fall asleep I used to, watch Family Guy, and I watched The American Dad, and Bob's Burger. So I've been going through all the, it's still funny and it's still relevant, the Simpsons. But yeah, South Park would be a good one also to do. Blaine says, we play baseball in the spring, hockey in the spring. We have our traditions. You have yours. Fantasy League football. Who dreams up these rules? ? Maybe XFL can grow in Mexico. Blah, blah, blah. 108 years of tradition hurts your feelings. CFL is more fun to watch than 4-down sleeper. Blaine, not a fan of 4-down football and American stuff. He just says, stay out. David Jack says, in my opinion, XFL is dead since they moved it back to 2023. Hey, that is a legitimate criticism. I think they are buying time and holding on to the XFL brand as long as they can before they admit it was a waste of money. Interesting point there as well. Blaine checks in again. Toronto Argonauts are already subsidized by 3 other teams. It's the community-owned teams that are successful, not the huge population base in Toronto. There's been talk for years about moving them to Kitchener on. Argos don't even have a dedicated football stadium. The soccer field they play on is grass with artificial turf in the end zone, blah, blah, blah. He says, we will snap the ball in 3 weeks. You're still dreaming about 2023, tease, blah, blah, blah. We had 8 teams for years and didn't, okay, just blah, blah, blah. So he said, Calgary, our strength of the league. We invest in our stadiums, and then you take notice. That's pure American. Again, okay, Blaine. Let's talk about what this is really about, and this is about you hating Americans, and it has nothing to do with football. It has nothing to do with me. So just that's your worldview, my friend, and that's not my worldview. So you have fun with that. On to the Twitter. GBMCD1 says, he says, I'm talking about the USFL potential head coaches, team locations, ownership article from Mike Mitchell. He says, I'm not devoted to any league. I followed a lot of them, attended games over the years, and display a few souvenirs from them. So it doesn't matter if it's XFL, USFL, or collaboration between leagues. I'm just hopeful one comes along and sticks. And he's got a really cool thing. I think he's an artist, right? Cartooning my hobby, education my career, now retired Hosmer father, grandfather, my blessing. Pretty cool picture that he did. We're up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, which, by the way, we are live on Facebook as well. Very cool picture there. And I agree. We just all want the league, some kind of spring football in the United States. And if not, watch the CFL, which we are covering on CFL News Hub, despite the fact that people don't want us to. So Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, had this Black Adam, which is supposed to be a big movie coming out. They just wrapped filming, and K Smith 87 says, so now XFL, right? Can you now concentrate on the XFL, The Rock? We'll have to ask him next time we see him. We're hanging out together. Andy Murray, talking about Andy Paul Murray, at Andy Paul Murray on Twitter, talking about the USFL article. Brian Wood's vision of being a developmental league for the NFL is antiquated. The NFL has no desire for a minor league because the NCAA funnels all their talent to them at no extra cost. The spring league has to be its own entity and not concern itself with the big dogs. I agree with that. I've heard him talk that, wanting to partner with the NFL, and you want to partner with the NFL because they have money. And you don't really need to do that. I mean, the NFL doesn't really need to do that, but it would be good to have. I mean, the NFL tried the minor league system and it didn't work. I have a feeling the USFL wants to make such noise that they could potentially sell it to the NFL at some point, but I don't think the NFL would be too interested in that. On the Instagram, talking about the kickoff stuff, Fransley_7. That way, it will never come back. It was going back in 2022, now in 2023. Fred JM, I think the USFL has more to work with and will find a foothold in the spring, and the XFL will be left in the dust if they still play in 2023. Good point. James Griffin, no, I don't think so, especially if they bring back the USFL in the spring of 22. We just have to wait and see what happens. That's true. Allen, yes, I do. They address to address the fans soon. Talking about the XFL. Angel Durant 12. I don't think they have much of a choice at this point. Talking about the XFL returning. Jack Stevens says yes. He knows. And real front row Brian says nope. Nope. Ain't gonna happen. That's what he says there. All right, let's take a phone call first before we get to some emails, shall we?
Hey, I got a quick question. I was listening to a podcast out of Canada from a reputable source. I know he's been a guest on your show, and I don't want to accuse him of being false advertising or anything. But is it true that the CFL is having trouble paying their Canadian players? If so, can you elaborate on it more? Or if I'm just dead wrong, just let me know I'm dead wrong, and I apologize. I'm not trying to start false rumors, false allegations. I have nothing but respect for the CFL. But he mentioned that, and they almost didn't take it seriously on the show. I couldn't tell if he was being sarcastic or if it's actual news. And I'm like, if that's actual news, I'm like, that's not good. And I was just wondering if you could clarify that for me. Thank you.
All right. Well, he called back, and by the way, that was his call that came in all staticky. But let's get to the second part of his call, and then I'll address. But we need to play the first to get to the second. So let's hear he did call back.
Hey, Mark, I just left a voicemail actually not that long ago. I'm talking about and asking if the CFL is actually playing their players or they're having major problems and it's just kind of being swept under the rug. I got a theory. If the CFL is doing as bad as what some people are saying, I could see in 2022 with the USFL coming in and be able to scoop up the cream of the crop for the CFL because, people like getting paid. And I could also see maybe in the future, since talks broke down with the CFL, do you see maybe some, future massive, spring leagues merger like the XFL and the USFL joining forces, kind of like how the NFL and AFL did way back in the day? Do you see that's a possibility of happening? Again, I'm not trying to be a FUD of negative news. It's just some stuff I've heard, and I know you're the source to put all that stuff at ease, or at least it's fun talking points maybe. Anyway, I hope you're having a great day. My CFL team is the Red Blacks. XFL team was the Dallas Renegades. Hope you're having a great day. God bless, and thank you for having the radio programs that you do. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and God bless to you as well. Another one of my brothers in faith, hopefully. As far as the stuff going on with not paying their players, it harkens back to something during the what happened, not actually current state now. It was more of just money that was owed in the past, and they wanted to pay the rookies, but the team owners said, well, they never played, so why should we pay them? And they were basically, some teams were holding out this money. And that's kind of where it stands there. But as far as training camp money and all other stuff, they are getting paid for those things. It was just money related to that. It doesn't look good for the CFL. They're trying to, be sticklers here. You guys, you already cut their pay big time anyways. So why you got to go down that path? But as far as not paying their players, they are paying their players. But yeah, it was not a good look for the CFL, and I think it's all systems go as far as paying players, and so there's no things to worry about that. So on to an email. Let's get to our emails here, shall we? We'll get to our chats in a second. Mark, as always, Love the XFL News Hub! Exclamation point. FYI, the article last written by Mike Mitchell was absolutely a kick-ass read. Yes, Hall of Famer writer Mike Mitchell. Let's just call it now. A few things I want to touch base in regards to with the article. One, now that the XFL CFL merger is finished, XFL has to start their marketing plan to football fans, and this has to be done ASAP. Can't tell you how frustrating it is to not read a thing day in and day out. An immediate blast of constant updates will go a long way. True, true, true. With the hopeful start of the 2023, I think the XFL can expand the league from 8 teams to 10 teams minimum. I love the idea about Mexico City as a possibility. Yes, me too. It would not be a surprise if that city be a leader in attendance. Absolutely. Another city that Mike Mitchell mentioned in the article is a possibility, the city of Columbus, Ohio, a leader in TV ratings, second to the Battlehawks Nation. True. There are 2 soccer-specific stadiums that the XFL could utilize in Columbus. 3, CFL defections. If Toronto and other big market CFL teams want to join the XFL, I feel a little bummed for the CFL fans, but the XFL style of football is far superior to the CFL brand. I didn't say that. He did, not me. Don't get mad at me. CFL had their chance to sustain their league into the future. XFL should seriously consider expansion to Canada if that were in play. 4, with the launch and hopeful future success of the European League of Football, how great would it be to see future competitions between the 2 leagues? He says, as always, let's see. Blah, blah, blah. He says, I have always thought there is a market for professional football outside of the NFL, and it can be successful. I agree with you there. Hopefully this starts next year with the new launch of the XFL. If it happens, I'm definitely headed to D.C. to watch the Defenders and buy Mark Perry a cold cider. Yes! That's what I'm talking about. He just said that's what I'm talking about, exclamation point. I didn't even see that. That's funny. Jim, St. Louis Battlehawks fan, checking in. Jim, I would absolutely hang out in St. Louis. I would love to. I cannot wait to tailgate with you guys. It'd be awesome. Awesome to bring this back. I mean, it's been such a crazy. I tell you, space aliens come. That's probably the next thing that's going to happen. But as far as some of your takes, I agree. They need to do something. It needs to just to kind of ramp things up. I really think 2022 they're going to ramp things up, and we're going to hear a lot. I mean, we did that year when the XFL, coaches, and it just get fans pumped, season tickets, that kind of thing. I think fans will absolutely re-engage once it happens. But right now, I think fans are disappointed. I mean, if you had your heart set on 2022, we were telling you for a long time that ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen. As far as Mexico City, that would be huge, and I bet you they would lead the league in attendance. I think half the reason why the XFL wanted to talk to the CFL was to get some kind of gauge on the Canadian market and learn. I mean, I think both sides benefited from this chat and, ideas and things of that nature. So I don't think it was all for nothing. Those who said it was all for nothing would have said, they say bad things. It doesn't matter what. It's kind of a joke, some of those people. But Columbus, yeah, they did well. CFL, the Toronto, another big wanting to join. Yeah, I would feel bummed for the CFL fans too. I don't know. I mean, you got to think about, that the audience for the Argonauts, they're just not selling. So why upset the handful of fans when you can bring in absolutely new fans because it's a new hip thing in the XFL? It'd be really interesting to see how Toronto did, and it would be fascinating to see the XFL set up a team in Toronto, and it did better than the Argonauts. I mean, there's some really interesting plot points in this journey to 2023. That's interesting, and it would be cool, absolutely, to do something with the European League of Football and even the Mexico League of Football. That those two guys be the minor leagues of the XFL. And then they good players from there move up to the XFL, and then from there to the NFL, and then players move down to the XFL. You know what I mean? Like you could have some kind of system, and even the CFL too would basically, the XFL and CFL would be your tier 2, and the USFL well, who knows? But then, these other European leagues kind of be a tier 3 and they all kind of work together. I think it would be great. I mean, what's going to happen with the CFL when they have the USFL taking up players and the XFL taking American players? Like, how does that? I mean, there's plenty of players to go around, I'm sure. I knew that there was chatter somewhere. I had listened to somebody talking that there was concern when the AAF came around. That was panic within the league in the CFL because, losing American players, but then they saw like, this isn't going to work. And then the XFL came around and they weren't so worried about it the second go around. And then things went where it did. But now, I mean, I'm sure that's, and especially they know, it's like, we've hung out with the XFL. We know what they're about. I mean, are these guys going to want to play in Canada for potentially less money because of they play more games and they get more money, but then you take the conversion rate of the cash. Do they really make out as well? And being in the United States, they're in front of American audience and American coaches that could see their game tape in the NFL. So we'll see where it goes there. Let's get to another phone call, shall we?
Hey, this is Richard Bednar, Richard O. Farrell on Twitter. All I got to say is I'll be glad when Danny the Rock and Redbird.
Oh, and by the way, Jim, thanks for checking in. St. Louis Battlehawk fan. I forgot to say that. All right, next phone call.
Hey, this is Richard Bednar, Richard O. Farrell on Twitter. All I got to say is I'll be glad when Danny the Rock and Redbird finally get the SFL league up and running because they're going to lose fans to USFL next year. And they losing out on players and coaches. And another thing too is that all they worried about is they magazine covers, what movie coming out, and what new drinks they promoting our clothing line. SFL fans need more than that. We need something about the league itself. Stop getting on Twitter talking about we got this coming out, that coming out, but nothing about the league. They really need to get their act together.
All right, I agree with Richard. Thanks for checking in. Yeah, I mean, they're like, hey, check out this new women's brand of clothing. Check out this new drink when we promote it. Now, this new movie, A Jungle Cruise, is coming out soon, which I'm going to go see. Rock wasn't in Fast and the Furious 9, F9, by the way. And where's the XFL in this? We know it's important to you. You do interviews, and it's talked about, but like, all right, it's time now. Look, Black Adam is done. Like, let's go. Like, it's time now. It's time to like take this thing to the next level. So I agree, and Richard's right. I mean, he's speaking for a lot of fans that are kind of frustrated about this whole thing. We all want the football league to succeed. We're ready to embrace the football league, but not hearing anything, and is just kind of frustrating for all of us. Well, we have hope, right? And that's what you got to have in life is hope. On to the next email. Mark, good podcast, but they are long. Phew. Hey, we're not as long as Markcast. I'll tell you that right now. They beat us by double. I'm still finishing the last episode. But yeah, I try to keep them shorter, but I think things are going to get lightened up soon. But we're still working on guests to get some interesting guests out there so you don't have to hear me blab the whole time. He says, I don't know why people think you don't like the CFL. Like you said, you've committed resources to it. Yes. I know. I've said that, and I don't get it. A couple things you brought up over the time on your podcast that were interesting. Baseball is in trouble, in my opinion, so is the NBA, and that is real opening for some spring, summer football. Yes, if I'm a football league, I am not worried about any of those things. Hockey, NBA, any of that stuff, because football is king. People will watch football in the spring. Because we've talked about it. It's a better betting game. I think the NBA is doing okay. I'm not really too worried about the NBA. Again, the reason why I'm like baseball, grew up in New York, lifelong Mets fan. The steroid scandal happened. All these other things occurred. They shut down. The poor Expos should have won the World Series that year. And then that all thing happened. And then, I just questioned it because I know, in Baltimore, the Orioles are a big thing, and it was, always a packed house. Not anymore. And I understand the team's not as good, but they were going when the team was not good because that was the thing to go to an Orioles game. No one goes to Orioles games anymore. When the Yankees built their new stadium, I was like, oh, that's a reason why maybe attendance is down. I'm watching the brand new stadium before you know what hit, and those seats are empty. Now, granted, they're super expensive, blah, blah, blah. I get all that stuff. But even like watching it on TV, they're not packed houses. When I was growing up, they were packed houses constantly. And they're paying these guys way more. And I'm it's just the economics don't add up to me. That's why. It's not, I don't think the game is bad. It's slow. I played baseball. I loved baseball. It's just, this is what I'm seeing. By the way, the reason late winter is a good idea is as much of the country is locked up inside and looking for afternoon entertainment and jonesing for some football. As the weather improves, people migrate outside. So that's an interesting point about why to keep football maybe in. But it's just cold, man. You weren't there, man. Okay? You weren't there in D.C. for that first and second game where we were freezing our you-know-what's off. That thank goodness we were able to manscape it. Those things. Because it was cold, bro. It was freaking cold. It was like super cold. And I'm a wuss. I'm getting old. I like the beach. I like the beach and the warm weather and tank tops and flip-flops. He says, I do have concern about the XFL. Let's see here. They have yet to open the checkbook and have pushed back the opening twice to do it. 10/1/2020, they said no 2021, and between Mike Mitchell reporting and DG comments, Danny Garcia, that was more or less due to the lack of lucrative media rights deal. Then on July 7th, they slide out a statement to XFL News Hub, among others, stating that their talks with the CFL are done and nothing was reached. But they don't list that on their website, and their website Twitter link doesn't even work. Really? The website Twitter link doesn't even work? I have to check that one out. You said this week that if the XFL doesn't start doing things by October, that's a bad sign for a return. I've been having that feeling since October 1, 2020. I just haven't seen them make any moves that involves them spending. I hope they do now. The USFL is happening and CFL door is closed. Mike Mitchell is the man I listen to most, and he kept my interest peaked, and he's just good at what he does. I'm glad you have him on the payroll. Yes, he's the Hall of Famer, Mike Mitchell. We're calling him now. But I want to see more on your site. I think it's a big opportunity for you is the USFL and Brian Woods himself. Mark Cass has had Brian Woods on plenty of times, and they'll continue to do that. There's no official USFL news, but Woods runs a tight ship, and he stated on the Markcast that they should talk to him and work with him. Granted, that was 2 months ago, but I'm sure he's looking for inexpensive ways to get the word out between you, Mike, and Josh. I think the USFL is a big opportunity. Just my 2 cents. You said you were from Long Island. Keep up the good work. Regards, Mr. a.k.a. Fourth and Long checking in. Yes, I am from out east in a town called Shoreham, New York. I went to Shoreham Wading River High School. It was out near Riverhead. We're out towards like the Hamptons on the North Shore. So that's where the beach person, it was a rocky beach and the water was cold 95% of the time. But I am a person that, and even my brother reiterated too in this past vacation being by the beach, like we're just naturally beach people. If you did, I did that ancestry test. I'm like 97, 98% Irish. And where my family grew up was in Cork, Ireland, which was like on kind of like the lower part, right by the water. So it's in our blood. It makes sense. So that's kind of where I grew up on Long Island. And that's why I have, some people don't like me. People don't like New Yorkers. I lost the accent. I've been in Maryland since college. So that's why I don't have the accent. If I had a couple cider beers, yeah, then it comes back. But yeah, maybe that's why people don't like me sometimes. It's because I got that New York thing in me, huh? You shut your mouth. And that's my problem, is I'm a guy who is a strong faith. I mean, I went through a lot, and faith kind of brought me out of that. And I have that side of me. And then I have this New York punk kid side of me that still exists. And the two battle. And I like trying to be a good person and nice and thoughtful and understanding of people, even the fact that but then I got this New Yorker and me. Also, and that's the you know what I mean? Those two battle all the time. That's my excuse. What's yours, huh? So thanks, Mr. Fourth and Long, checking in. Finally, one last one. You must be real stupid if you think that the Tampa Bay Vipers, and especially LA Wildcats, is a good idea. This is where you place the teams. He's got Oakland Chiefs, San Diego Dodgers, Salt Lake. What is he talking about? Oh, potential expansion cities for the XFL amid CFL partnership. Oakland Chiefs, Dodgers, Salt Lake, Colorado Raiders, San Antonio Mavericks, Orlando Knicks. What is this guy? Clearly, Steven, lay off the brownies, the special brownies. Okay? I don't know what you're talking about. We should name a team the Orlando Knicks. That is a great idea from Steven, Brownie Eater, checking in on the show. All right, let's check into, we got some of our friends on Facebook checking in. Remember, our show is streamed live on Facebook, so we got to give some love to our friends there in Facebook world. Let's see. Richard says, can't get enough of football in Ohio. Like that. Columbus, Ohio, we will take a team, please. He's all about that. Mike says, I hope San Antonio gets a team. I live 2 hours from Tone. I'll make every home game. Oh, there you go. And Shane says Tampa. I personally, because where I want to move the XFL News Hub / whatever this thing is that we do, location, it would work for me to check out. I would love to see the Vipers move to Orlando for selfish reasons because of where we're thinking of going eventually. So check that stuff out. That's why there. All right, on the chat room, thanking for everybody. True American checking out. I think San Jose is getting an arena football team from the IFL. The Oakland Panthers are moving to San Antonio. Virginia, Hartford, Connecticut need XFL teams. What? Hartford, Connecticut? That is a big area. D-Tom, America, USFL and XFL combining in 2024, then pick off each CFL team one by one, and you have a mega spring league by 2030. Could you imagine that? Do you think that would happen? If they got to the point where both leagues decided to merger, would they merge into the USFL? Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? I mean, because the problem is I think they're going to overlap locations. Paladin Demo, never abandon the old guard, fans. Many of the franchises tried in nerdom, and they all suffered. Respect the old, and the old guard brings in the new. Little Bitty Customs, I agree with this guy. They're going to sell the league, and it will be 2024 before it launches. I mean, wouldn't that be something if the XFL decides to get out of it and sells the rights to Fox and the USFL? I mean, who knows, man? We just need to get something off the ground. And to Brian Wood's credit, I've said this multiple times, they're the ones that had a team. They've played multiple times. That's it. That's all you need to know. They got that one. Julian says Jack Murphy Qualcomm Stadium has been destroyed. He says Paladin Demo says I'm Cardinals. When the Royd scandal happened, it hit all teams. Yeah, Cardinals. St. Louis is a great town, sports town. Greg says baseball, MLB, and minor league is great in the stands, but it's hard to watch. This is true. Stone Cold 10X, bring back Houston Gamblers. Jim Kelly played for them. And there you go. That's our friends in the chat room. Well, thanks for everybody for stopping by. We'd like to thank Dwayne Wallace for being on the show, talking up his experience. I think it's very important for fans to kind of get a behind-the-scenes look of what it's like for players in these leagues, and I think it's important. We're working on more guests coming on the show. I think you guys will really enjoy it. Remember, if you want to be part of the show, podcast at XFL News Hub or call 888-430-7692 extension 3. Follow us on the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show, and you can download us. Remember, we got our apps there too, and we got Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all that good stuff. Remember, question of the week next week: are you all in for the USFL, or are you kind of like wait and see? You're like, yeah, I'm in, I'm all, let's do it. I don't care what the team is. I'm gonna root for it, and that's it. Or are you just kind of waiting and see how things go there? And I'm telling you, we're hearing stuff, a lot of stuff coming from the USFL. Hopefully, we can write about it at some point over the next month or so. But we're hearing there's rumblings going there, nothing that we're hearing from the XFL. But call me if you guys got anything. Okay? And remember, we want to thank our sponsor, of course, Manscaped. Check them out. XFL News Hub is the promo code on manscaped.com. Come on, guys. It's summertime. Trim it up. You got it? Come on. The ladies will like it, all right? For show notes, xflnewshub.com/xfl-podcast. Join us on the Discord. And that's it for me, folks. Thanks for checking in. Next week, hopefully, we'll have another guest to talk XFL with. And remember, especially, CFLnewshub.com. First of all, like and subscribe. Smash the like button right now, you little brats. While you're doing it, doesn't take much. Like and subscribe to this channel, and make sure you check out CFL News Hub. We got some great stuff going on there, and hopefully some good guests coming on that as well. We talk about the CFL season. Just had an article talking about DraftKings. We'll have confirmed. We'll have DFS CFL, so we'll be able to do that. And we're going to do leagues, hopefully fantasy football leagues, and with the CFL, all that kind of fun stuff. Head over to CFL News Hub. Thanks for listening. God bless. Mahalo. Stay safe out there, my friends. Stay safe out there, and I will see you all later. Thanks for checking in.